Robert Powell, the life and career of the actor, who became Jesus for a generation. Few actors become so deeply identified with a single role that their face seems to merge with the character in the public imagination.
I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe that somebody existed called Jesus Christ who was probably...
Robert Powell is one of those rare figures. For millions of viewers around the world, he is not simply an English actor with a long and varied career. He is the unforgettable face of Jesus in Franco Zeffirelli's Jesus of Nazareth, 1977. A performance that has endured for decades and remains one of the most recognized portrayals of Christ ever filmed. Yet reducing Powell only to that role would miss the larger story. His career stretches far beyond one production. He built a reputation through serious television drama, historical roles, film performances, stage work, comedy, and later narration, where his distinctive voice became almost as recognizable as his face. His life and career reveal not only the power of one iconic performance, but also the discipline and range of an actor who continued working across many forms for decades. Robert Thomas Powell was born on June 1, 1944, in Salford, Lancashire, England. He was educated at Manchester Grammar School and later studied law at the University of Manchester, which suggests that acting was not originally the only path laid out before him. Still, performance drew him early. Sources note that he acted while still young and eventually moved into repertory theater, a traditional training ground that demanded versatility, discipline, and stamina. That early foundation mattered. British repertory culture forced actors to develop craft quickly, shifting between styles and genres, and it helped create the kind of performer Powell would become. Intelligent, technically controlled, and capable of carrying serious dramatic material. Powell's early screen career began in smaller parts. He appeared in films such as Robbery, 1967, and The Italian Job, 1969. But those roles did not yet make him a major name. His first real breakthrough came on television, especially with the BBC science fiction series Doomwatch in 1970, where he played Tobias Toby Wren. That role brought him wider public notice and helped establish him as one of the promising young actors of British television. Around the same period, he also appeared in literary and period productions such as Sentimental Education and Jude the Obscure, showing early on that he fit naturally into thoughtful, prestige drama rather than only commercial entertainment. These parts mattered because they built the image that would follow him into the 1970s. Intense, intelligent, slightly severe, but compelling on screen. The 1970s proved decisive for Powell. British television and cinema at the time still valued classically trained performance, and Powell's screen presence matched that environment. He had unusually striking features, piercing eyes, and an ability to project inwardness without becoming passive. That quality made him ideal for historical figures and psychologically demanding roles. One of the clearest signs of his growth as an actor came with Ken Russell's Mahler, 1974, in which Powell played the Austrian composer Gustav Mahler. The role was ambitious, artistic, and far removed from standard television drama. It demonstrated that Powell could handle material that was intellectually dense and emotionally layered. He also appeared in Russell's Tommy, 1975, further showing that his career was moving through serious and unconventional projects, not merely routine television work. Then came the role that would define him forever, Jesus in Jesus of Nazareth, 1977. But if he made it too ordinary, it would lose its mystery. He had to hold both things at once: the humanity of Jesus and the sense that this man was not merely another historical figure. That balance shaped every important choice in the production, especially the casting of Robert Powell as Jesus. At the time, Powell was not the most obvious choice if the goal had simply been star power. But Zeffirelli seems to have understood something crucial. If audiences recognize too much of the actor, they might never truly see the character. So he chose someone with a striking face, an unusual calm, and the ability to suggest something deeper than ordinary performance. That decision would become one of the most important in the history of religious filmmaking. Powell's performance did not rely on big speeches or dramatic movement. In fact, one of the reasons his portrayal became so unforgettable was because of how still he was. His face carried much of the role. His performance conveyed serenity, authority, sadness, and compassion with unusual restraint. His eyes became central to the role. Viewers often remember the gaze first, intense, searching, almost unnervingly direct. Zeffirelli's visual style helped turn that into something iconic, but the effect depended on Powell's discipline as an actor. He did not play Jesus as abstract perfection. He played him with stillness and gravity, allowing the camera to do part of the work while he held the emotional center. That balance is one reason the performance has remained so influential. Even decades later, many viewers still compare every screen Jesus to Powell's version. The impact of Jesus of Nazareth on Powell's public image was enormous. Some actors dream of one immortal role, but such fame comes at a price. When a portrayal becomes cultural memory, it can overshadow the rest of a career. In Powell's case, the success of Jesus of Nazareth was both a triumph and a burden. It gave him lasting international recognition, but it also made it harder for the public to see him apart from that face, that voice, and that image. Yet Powell did not disappear into the role. Instead, he kept working and deliberately moved into different territory. Just 1 year later, he starred in The 39 Steps, 1978, as Richard Hannay, another title role, this time in a thriller tradition associated with John Buchan and Alfred Hitchcock. This was a smart move. Hannay was dynamic, adventurous, and worldly, the opposite of the sacred stillness associated with Jesus. Powell's performance was well received, and the character proved durable enough that he later returned to the role in the television series Hannay, which ran for 2 seasons. That success showed something important. Powell was not only the actor who had played Christ, he was also a convincing leading man in suspense and action drama. Powell continued building a varied body of work in the 1980s. In Harlequin, 1980, he took on the title role in a mysterious and morally ambiguous film, and the performance brought him a Best Actor award at the Paris Film Festival. A few years later, he won Best Actor at the Venice Film Festival for Imperative, 1982. These awards matter because they complicate the common assumption that his artistic peak began and ended with Jesus of Nazareth. In fact, Powell was receiving serious recognition for other performances as well. He was respected not just as a television icon, but as a substantial actor capable of carrying complex material internationally. Another important dimension of Powell's career is voice work and narration. Over time, his voice became one of his strongest artistic assets. He narrated documentaries, audiobooks, and historical television series, especially productions related to war and 20th century history. Biographical sources highlight his work on programs such as World War II in HD color, Hitler's Bodyguard, The Story of the Third Reich, and Secrets of World War II. This phase of his career is significant because narration requires a different kind of authority from screen acting. The face disappears. Only rhythm, tone, and control remain. Powell succeeded there too, suggesting that what made him effective as Jesus was never only visual resemblance or directing. It was the deeper discipline of presence, on camera and in sound. His career also included lighter and more unexpected turns. One of the most surprising was The Detectives, where Powell worked with comedian Jasper Carrot. The series began through sketches and later became a sitcom, marking Powell's first major venture into outright comedy. This part of his career is easy to overlook because it sits so far from the solemnity of Jesus of Nazareth, but it reveals range and self-awareness. Actors trapped inside overly serious screen identities often avoid comedy for fear of breaking the image. Powell did not. By stepping into comic material, he demonstrated both flexibility and confidence. He could be grave, heroic, mysterious, or ridiculous depending on the role. That matters when judging the whole career rather than just the most famous chapter. Powell also remained active on stage and in television drama later in life. In 2005, he joined the BBC medical drama Holby City as Mark Williams, staying with the series for about 6 years. The role brought him into a modern television audience far removed from the historical and religious productions with which he had become associated. It was a reminder that longevity in acting often depends less on glamour than on reliability, adaptability, and professionalism. Powell did not simply live off past fame. He kept accepting work, learning new formats, and staying visible in British performance culture. His stage work remained important as well. In 2015, he played the title role in Mike Bartlett's King Charles III in a major production that moved through Birmingham, toured the UK, and then reached Sydney. That role portraying an imagined future British monarch again showed Powell's strength in roles that combine authority, psychology, and national symbolism. It also proved that even in later career stages, he was still being trusted with intellectually serious and high-profile material. In personal life, Powell married Barbara Babs Lord, a dancer from Pan's People, in 1975, shortly before location filming for Jesus of Nazareth in Tunisia. Biographical sources consistently note that they have 2 children. Compared with many public figures, Powell's family life appears to have remained relatively private and stable. That privacy may partly explain why public discussion of him focuses far more on performance than scandal or celebrity culture. In an era when actors are often consumed by publicity machinery, Powell's image has remained unusually centered on work itself. There is also something distinctive about Powell's legacy within religious and cultural memory. Many actors have played Jesus, but only a few have become lasting reference points. Powell belongs in that very small group. His portrayal arrived at a moment when large-scale biblical productions still had broad mainstream reach, and it benefited from Zeffirelli's painterly visual sensibility. But timing alone does not explain its endurance. The performance continues to resonate because it balanced reverence with humanity. It felt elevated without losing emotional reality. For many viewers, especially those who first encountered the gospel story through television, Powell's face became the visual vocabulary of Jesus. That is an extraordinary artistic outcome, even if it is also limiting. At the same time, Powell's career deserves to be understood beyond religious iconography. He was part of a strong generation of British actors who moved fluidly between television, film, stage, voice work, and literary adaptation. His early work in Doomwatch Jude the Obscure and Mahler showed seriousness and intelligence. His turn as Hannay showed leading man energy. His festival awards for Harlequin and Imperative showed critical respect. His narration work showed vocal authority. His comedy and later television roles showed durability. Seen as a whole, his career is not the story of an actor remembered for one role because nothing else mattered. It is the story of an actor whose most famous role became so large that the public often forgot how much else he had done. One of the most interesting aspects of Powell's professional life is the contrast between intensity and understatement. He was never a flamboyant star in the modern celebrity sense. He did not build his career on public controversy, aggressive self-promotion, or constant reinvention. Instead, his screen identity was built on focus, stillness, vocal precision, and intelligence. Those qualities may not create tabloid fame, but they create endurance. They also explain why so much of his best work centers on figures who carry symbolic weight. Jesus, Mahler, Hannay, King Charles, and authoritative narrators of historical events. Powell had a gift for embodying significance without theatrical excess. That is rarer than it looks. Even his continued association with Jesus of Nazareth became part of his later career. In 2018, he appeared in the Smithsonian Channel documentary series The Real Jesus of Nazareth, which used his earlier portrayal as part of a wider historical exploration of the life of Christ. This is revealing. Rather than running from the role, Powell eventually stood alongside its legacy, acknowledging its place in both television history and public religious imagination. By then, the performance was no longer simply an acting credit. It had become a cultural reference point. When judging Robert Powell's importance, it helps to ask 2 separate questions. First, was he a great actor? The evidence suggests yes. The range of roles, the longevity of his career, the critical recognition, and the trust placed in him across genres all support that conclusion. Second, why does he remain so powerfully remembered? The answer lies partly in Jesus of Nazareth, but also in something deeper. Powell brought seriousness to the screen without coldness. He projected authority without noise. He made stillness dramatic. That combination is why he could play sacred figures, historical personalities, detectives, narrators, and comic roles while retaining a uniquely recognizable identity. In the end, Robert Powell's life and career tell a story larger than one famous performance. He was born in wartime England, educated seriously, trained through hard professional routes, and built a career across television, film, stage, and voice. He achieved international immortality in Jesus of Nazareth, but he did not stop there. He kept working, kept adapting, and kept proving that the qualities which made him unforgettable in one role could sustain an entire career. For one generation, he became the face of Jesus. For anyone looking more closely, he also became something else, a model of long-form acting craft, disciplined presence, and artistic endurance. That is why Robert Powell still matters, not only as the actor who played Christ, but as an actor whose career deserves to be remembered in full. But now I want to turn the question to you. When you think about Robert Powell, what is the first image that comes to mind? Was it his unforgettable role in Jesus of Nazareth? Was it another film or series from his long career? And why do you think his portrayal has remained so powerful for so many people, even after all these years? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd really like to know whether Robert Powell is still your favorite screen portrayal of Jesus, or whether another actor has affected you more. And beyond that, do you think one iconic role can become both a blessing and a burden for an actor? Let's talk about it.